have a minute for Comadre time?
Hola Comadres, this is Marcy, your host of Comadreando podcast. Today we have a very special episode. We're joined by one of my amazing guests, and her name is Ayanna, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Who are you?
Hi, my name is Ayanna. Most people know me as Phenomenally Autistic, and I am an autism advocate. I'm autistic and I'm an artist, and I mostly speak about autism awareness and acceptance for Black and Brown autism people because I feel like when it comes to autism, we're often looked over and forgotten about, like we're not here. And I feel like when it comes to autism, they sometimes intentionally make it so that you only think about little white boys, and that's not the case. There are Black and Brown autistic people as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to raise awareness in the community. So I like to give my listeners like a breakdown of how I met my guests. And Ayanna and I got connected through social media because of Rick, which is one of the
Yes,
guests
I love them.
from the Women Cloud podcast. Rick had interviewed Ayanna last May, and he was like, I know who would be like an amazing guest for your show. And I'm like, who? And then he told me all about you, and I was like, oh my God, I love her. And then like he gave me your social media profile, and I was like obsessed. I was like, oh my God. I was like, she's like slaying. You guys have to, I'm gonna put her IG in the show notes. But she's like slaying, like completely fashion model, like besides doing all the work, like you can tell that she's an artist because she has like such a great sense of style. So today's topic is autism in adults. And the reason why I wanted to kind of talk about the topic, besides the fact of like we're going to touch on advocacy as well, but the reason why I wanted to talk about it was because, I was just kind of curious about what the experience is like for people on the spectrum as adults. Because, I have a child on the spectrum, Ayanna, I don't know if you know. But yeah, my son Aiden, he's 13. He's going to be an adult, in a few years. So I want to know kind of like what it's like for you, and to give other moms on the show kind of a glimpse of what it could be like, or how we can help our children get ready for the future. So you said you have autism.
Yes,
Mhm.
ASD, that's my diagnosis. I do have some, developmental delays as well. Like I'm not on the intellectual level as my peers, but I do believe that your child can still, live a full life. Maybe not like, they're as not in the way their friends can or like their siblings or their cousins, but in like a way that they can still enjoy and that you can still enjoy. And like it's not like the end of the world. So I enjoy my life. Of course it's challenging, but I'm still able to do all the things that I set my heart to do. Like if I set a goal, I'm still able to do it, but there are just a few extra obstacles in the way. But like when there's an obstacle course, people get through the obstacle course, but they're called obstacles for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So there are challenges, but you can get through it and you can work through it. It's just a little harder, but when you go through things that are hard, it just makes you stronger.
So I want you to kind of tell the audience, how was it that you found out that you were on the spectrum? Because from my understanding, you were not diagnosed as a small child.
No, I found out because like I was in the hospital and like because I have a seizure disorder, and which is common for people who are autistic because autism is a neurological disorder
Mm-hmm.
and seizures are neurological. So I was there for that, and they noticed that I was different. I was a little withdrawn, not really speaking to my doctors. Most of the communication with my doctors was my dad speaking to them. And, they asked my dad, like, did I have, like, any type of intellectual disabilities? And he just said that, like, I was a very withdrawn child. So then they were like that they wanted to like evaluate me. So they brought like a team in. It was two women. And it was a very very long test, and they let me take breaks, and because I was getting a little frustrated. So they let me take breaks, and they at one point spoke to my dad and asked him how was I as a child. He told them, he was like, you know, with me everything is like black and white thinking. Things are fair or unfair. That I was very very honest, and you know, so sometimes people thought it was just me being rude, but it wasn't. It was just me being honest. Um, and then, like a couple days later, they just came and they sat down and they spoke to me and my treatment team, and they were like, "Yeah, she's on the spectrum." That's how I found out. So it was kind of like an accident, but um, it was also a relief because, you know, I've always felt different, and people knew I was different, but they didn't know why, and I didn't know why.
Yeah. So that test that you had, was it a neuropsychological evaluation?
I really don't know what it was called, but they were just they were kind of like I think it was because they were kind of like testing me for everything. And I honestly I just thought they were gonna like say I was bipolar. And from like speaking to like other autistic adults that I've met, like on TikTok, they a lot of them told me that before they got an autism diagnosis, they were diagnosed wrong, and they were like diagnosed for being bipolar. So
Wow.
that's what I thought they were gonna say,
Hmm.
but no, they didn't.
Yeah. So my son did the neuropsych evaluation, and he got super frustrated. Like he like spazzed out on the doctor.
I was just
He
getting
knocked
frustrated
down
because, like,
he knocked down like everything on the shelf, and we had to leave and come back, and then I had to come with like a behavior plan for him to like be able to sit through it, because it's a lot of hours, and I can
yeah,
see
it
how
was
it could be
so.
frustrating. And then all these weird questions, like they're like, oh, I'm gonna tell you a story, tell me all the things you remember, and you're like, what? It's like
Yeah, and then they
50
have
different
you.
things you have to list
They're
off.
like, look at this picture for 5 seconds and draw it. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I like to draw, but I don't remember what was on that picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like having that instant recall, like, and then you feel weird because you're like, am I supposed to remember every detail in that picture?
Yeah, I didn't. I was just like, And then like some of the stuff, like I'm guilty because some of the stuff they asked me to do, I just refused to do it. So
Yeah. No, that's okay. Listen, man, like I get it. It's an examination, but at the end of the day, like if you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel like doing it, I don't feel like you should be forced to do anything you don't want to do.
yeah, and that's like
Mhm.
another thing. Like I try to like explain to people now, like after like learning more like about myself and like things you should and shouldn't do to autistic people, because like at one point like people were trying to like force me to do things that like you shouldn't, like force autistic people to do like forced eye contact, like that's not something that you should do because there's a reason we're not looking you in your eye. So I'm just like, do you know that you can cause a meltdown? So I just like there's a lot people need to learn.
Yeah, so I'm a special education teacher too, and I noticed that my students, even if they're not looking at the board or whatever I'm teaching, they know exactly what's going on. So the
Hmm.
eye contact really is really not for you guys, like not for people on the spectrum. It's more for the person, the neurotypical adult or person that's speaking to the person, so they can feel comfortable, because that's like the type of interactions that they're used to. So I never like force my students. I'm just like, okay, it's fine. If you want to sit like with your back to the thing, as long as you're paying attention in the way that you feel comfortable, that's fine. Um, but yeah, like it, like that kind of behavior. It's so like what is it? Ableist? Is that what they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, ableist, be like reinforcing ableist tendencies on people that are not, that's not their norm.
Yeah, and like what's really sad, like some parents of like autism and differently able children, they're ableist themselves. So that's really sad.
Yeah, and it makes the kids feel like they're, I mean, obviously they are different, not everybody's the same, but it makes them feel bad about their differences instead of like empowering them and making them feel good about themselves. So how was that for you emotionally? You said you felt relieved. Was there any other emotions attached to it, or it was kind of like,
Um
oh my god, this
yeah,
is why?
it was a whole bunch of like emotions. Like first, it was like Okay, I'm gonna try to explain it the best way.
Mm-hmm.
It was a relief because I was like, okay, well, now you know why you're the way you are. Now you know why you're different. Now you know why you communicate the way you communicate. Why you know why sometimes you can't communicate. But I was also like embarrassed, and then I was like, because you still hear jokes about like autism and so like I didn't tell anybody for a while. Like my dad knew and I knew, but like I wouldn't tell anybody for a while because just because of the things that I heard about autism and then also like you know, when I say that, like, people never really associate Black people with autism, I was one of those people. So I really didn't tell anybody for a really long time. So, like, my emotions were all over the place. So for the first few years, I didn't tell anybody. Like, if I saw something, like if I was on Facebook and I would see something about autism, I would share it here and there, but I really would never like say that like I'm autistic and I really didn't start speaking about it until like the end of 2019 because when I wasn't accepting it, I was hating myself and at some point I was just like, okay, well, you know, it's time for you to start loving yourself. So when I accepted it, I started to love myself. So um and loving yourself is a good feeling. So that's when I started to accept it. I started to love myself.
Yay. I'm happy about that. Um, so now like the stark difference now is like now you share that you are on the spectrum like
Mhm.
upfront. So when you meet a group of people, you're like, hey, I'm on the spectrum, by the
Like most
way.
people, yeah, most people know now. Like some people don't agree with like telling people when you meet them that you're autistic. But the reason like most everybody that knows me now, they know. But if it's somebody that may not know, like we will tell them because if I can't mask, if it's a day where I just don't have the energy to mask or like I might rock back and forth or you know like people might be like right is she okay is she gonna like slap me so like we do it just so people are more comfortable and like they don't think like I'm being like rude or inappropriate because I am very honest like a few weeks ago I told my dad he needed a mint, but I wasn't saying it like a way that like he didn't brush his teeth. He just like ate something that I couldn't tolerate the smell because
Mm-hmm.
my smell is just like the sensitivity. So like that's what I mean like I'm being very honest. So we tell people so everybody's more comfortable and they don't think I'm being rude or inappropriate. So that's why we tell people, but some people don't agree with that. But, you know, everybody has their own opinions and their own beliefs.
So I wanted to ask you, because you know we get a lot of like I've read a lot of research about sensory processing disorder, right? Which is something that a lot of people with autism deal with, and like what does it feel like when you're like I know I have a very hypersensitive nose, so for me certain things will like trigger me to like gag,
Yeah.
like you know, and there's other things like certain sounds and like sometimes I'm like I wake up and like the lighting is not great and it's like it'll bother me. So how does that feel like in your body? Like do you feel it like is it like a feeling not like just a like not just like uncomfortable, not just being uncomfortable, but is it like something more?
Well, I can try to explain it sense by sense. So, like, my light sensitivity isn't really that bad because, you know, I'm sitting in a ring light right now, it isn't too bad. But sometimes I do have to put my phone on like night mode all day. Um, just because it's just a little bit too bright and like even sometimes like clothing will like over like stimulate you and it'll make me physically nauseous. Loud noises it's more like a overstimulation that can make you physically nauseous. For me like it affects everybody differently, but I wear noise canceling headphones. I do have taste sensitivities. I don't eat a lot of foods. It's for a lot of the foods for me, it's not really the taste, it's like the texture of the food that I don't like. With the smell sensitivities, I am very sensitive to that. Like I'm super sensitive to that. Um, so it does differ for everybody, but it's just like our senses are just like magnified. Like if I don't like somebody's cologne, and even if it's like faint, like other people won't smell it. They're like, we don't smell anything, and I'm like, well, I can't deal with this. So like, it is, it is different for everybody, but it is just like an overstimulation, and everybody's body reacts differently to it. So sometimes it can make me like physically like nauseous and like so it's different for everybody.
Hmm.
But
So
it's just like sensory overload. It just like feels like all your senses are like crashing.
So what do you do when you get overloaded like that? Do you like have like a game plan, like, okay, I'm gonna do this to get myself back to center, to like, get yourself back to your baseline?
Most of the time, I'll have to like go somewhere by myself and sit down, and I like to meditate because I found that that helps me. So sometimes I'll just like put my noise canceling headphones on, and I'll meditate. But if I need to do like a guided meditation, I'll put my AirPods on, and I'll just like meditate for about 10 or 15 minutes because one of the coping skills that I learned because I do CBT therapy. So one of the coping skills that they actually taught us was meditation to learn to be mindful.
Hmm.
So just being mindful in the moment grounds me. So that's one of my coping skills, and I learned that like that really helps me.
That's awesome. I love that you take mindful moments for yourself.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty, because I know you. A lot of people do things that really like get on your nerves. I was listening to some of the shows that, and that's okay. Listen, I love it because like you're real. Like that. Like I feel like some people need to be more real. I find fault in people that are like, they're smiling in your face, but then their intention is not what they're showing you, right? So it's like a different intention behind it. So I get annoyed at people like that. But what are some of your pet peeves about being an adult on the spectrum when you do decide to share with people? Like what are some things that people do that kind of like really get on your nerves, or that you just want to be like, hey, stop that crap
Um,
right now?
well, the first, like what I said, like if people find out I'm autistic, they're like, "Well, you don't look autistic," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what does an autistic person look like?" So
Exactly.
that is something that irritates my soul. And then, like, if somebody finds out that I'm autistic, they're like, "Oh, you're autistic." I saw Rain Man, and I'm like, "Okay, well,
That's
I'm
nice.
not Rain Man, and every autistic person is different. Like, it's called a spectrum for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person because everybody is different. So that irks my nerves. And then people are like, "Oh, well, you can't be autistic. My nephew's autistic, and he doesn't act like you." Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'm not like little Johnny. I'm Ayanna. So,
People are
like,
so
those are
freaking
some of the
weird.
things that really like really get on my nerves. Like those are just a few,
Yeah, like they
but
they tell me that all the time. They're like, "Oh, he doesn't look autistic." I'm like, "What is he
like
supposed to look
what are you
like?"
supposed to look like?
It's like when
Or
they like,
people
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
or people that say like all autistic people are geniuses, and I'm just like, well, actually that's kind of not true. There are some autistic people who have savant syndrome as well, but that's not all autistic people, and that's kind of like an unhealthy narrative to push
Yeah,
because it just makes the people who are not those things feel like they're not enough. So that bothers me too.
yeah, like the media portrayal of people with autism, like I love the shows like The Good Doctor and whatever, all these other shows. But it like pushes a narrative that people on the spectrum are like these like highly functioning, like just awkward, like socially awkward people,
Yeah.
which is not the case for everybody.
Yeah, and I like The Good Doctor not just because Sean is autistic. I like it because they show his like they really really show like his um his autism traits. Not too crazy about them showing him having savant syndrome, but I like the show because they're inclusive in other ways. Like they've had transgender actors on, and actors with other that are differently abled and amputees. So I like that show like for other reasons. But yeah, they always I don't think like the entertainment industry does a good job. Like I like Holly Robinson Pete, but I don't think that like the movie that she did with the autistic having the autistic son was a
Yeah.
good representation because they started the movie out by like telling him, but I do appreciate that they did use an actor who was actually autistic, but they
Mm-hmm.
started the movie out by trying to force him to look them in the eyes, and I'm like, don't they know that that can cause a meltdown? But I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, they're trying, but yeah.
Yeah, like I've met so many different people in like all arenas of the spectrum, and like just like you said, like not every person with autism is the same. Like not everybody has the same comorbidities or like little quirks or things like that. So I just wish, yes, display the people with savant syndrome, right? But also show people that are nonverbal and are like functioning at a high level, or that are functioning, not that that they're living their lives being nonverbal too. Because I feel like they don't really represent people
Yeah,
on
and
the
also
spectrum that are
like, cause like
nonverbal.
me, obviously I'm verbal, but I do have nonverbal episodes and select mutism, and like people um sometimes think that like just because you're having a nonverbal episode that means you can't communicate. You can still communicate, you can write, you can text, you can communicate with an iPad. So I think people forget that, or and they also forget that nonverbal people, not all but some, can still hear you and understand what you're saying. So
Yeah,
watch what you say
they have
because
receptive language.
people can be like really ignorant, and I don't think that they do it on purpose. It's just like not what they're used to.
Hmm. I had a student that well, she wasn't with me, but this was like I was in a school that was like for students on the spectrum, but like it was like an artistic school, so all the kids were like doing like different like plays and things like that. But there was one student that was happened to be nonverbal, and one of the teachers in the school was talking smack about her in front of her with another teacher, and she happened to hear. And then later on that day on her iPad, she told her mom what the teacher said. So it's like, just because somebody doesn't have expressive language doesn't mean that they're not understanding what you're saying, or that it's not hurtful what you're saying. You have to be very cognizant of the things that you say to people and how you express yourselves, and even body language, cuz like I feel like body language is a big thing, and I feel like people on the spectrum are more not sensitive, like they're more aware of body language and social
Yeah.
cues in that sense. So you guys can tell, like my son can tell like right away if somebody is like faking the funk.
Yeah, and like back to like teachers, the mistreatment by teachers. Like even though I was undiagnosed as a child, I actually had a like really bad encounter with a teacher. A substitute teacher choked me when I was like in third grade because my regular teacher, she knew that I needed to learn a little differently than everybody else. So she was used to me like asking questions or needed things explained a little differently, and she was fine with it. But this substitute, she was just sick of it. So she ended up choking me, but I didn't know that it was wrong. So I didn't tell my parents. A friend of mine told my parents. So like I put a post on TikTok and I told my followers, I was like, if you have an autistic child, instead of asking them how was their day, ask them how do people make them feel, because a teacher choked me, but I didn't know that it was wrong, but I knew I didn't like the way it made me feel. So, and even sometimes now as an adult, I don't know if people are mocking me. I don't really understand sarcasm. So people can say something to me and I'll just answer the question because I don't know they're being sarcastic. So, and a lot of parents was like, wow, this is like just such good advice. I'm going to start using this for my
Hmm.
child. And then, there are like a lot of Karens in the autism community. And one lady was
Girl.
like, well, my child doesn't understand his emotions. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, but I'm just giving a suggestion because some children do. And again, this is just my experience. And I didn't say it was going to work for everybody, but when you don't agree with them, they just lose their minds. But yeah.
Let me tell you something. Jail. I would have been in jail.
Well, we've never seen her again
Oh
after
my
that.
god, bro. Oh my goodness. I, Even as a teacher though, like I see other teachers say like stuff that's out of pocket, and I check them real quick because you're not about to do that, not in front of me,
Yeah, like,
not
and
at
my
all.
dad really doesn't play. She got fired, and like, she's lucky that,
Good.
like, I won't say it, but she's just very lucky.
Mm-mm. No. All right. So let's switch gears a little bit. So what do you do? I know that you were a choreographer before, right? So what do
Yes, I
you
was a
do now?
choreographer.
Yeah.
Now, like, I'm an artist. I have illustrated 17 children's books and released 4 coloring books. I just re-released my 2019 coloring book, We Are Magical.
Amazing. I love it. Um. So the books that you write, what are do you talk about being on the spectrum, or is it like just different topics?
Um, the ones that I've done in the past, like, I authored a book like a long time ago. It's not in print or anything anymore. I didn't know I was autistic when I put that book out. But I do have a children's book coming out. It was actually supposed to be out last year, but I kept changing things and changing my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
the last change that I'm actually making, though, is the cover. So hopefully it'll be out in a few months. And
Yay.
it actually does deal with autism. So this will be my second book that I am authoring. And it's more about like what you can do when you're different than more about what you can't do. So, and my coloring book is more based on like, just, black and brown girls seeing positive images of
I
self,
love it.
because I don't feel like there was enough. And I just feel like everybody deserves to see
Not at all.
people that look like them in a positive light, because you don't always see that.
Yeah. Even in the school community, I was talking to that about that in another episode, that I didn't really see myself represented when I went to school, and even in the media, I'm Latina, but the Latinas I was seeing were like, straight hair, blue eyes, blonde almost. And I used to honestly question myself, like, am I ugly? Like, why I don't see anybody that looks like me. And even the teachers that were teaching me, there was a bunch of like Caucasian people, and like the only other teacher of color that I knew was my mom, because she came from Dominican Republic and she wasn't even teaching at the moment. She had to get her degree again. But I feel like representation matters, and the fact that
Hmm.
I'm a curly hair Afro Latina and I'm in the school system, and I go and I show up as my authentic self helps a lot of little
Yeah, like, that's
girls.
how I feel. Like, before, like, I lost all my hair, like, this is like the wig that's like the closest to my texture. Like, I didn't see like a lot of curly head characters really anywhere. Like, even Barbie, all the Barbie dolls were just, they were just like painted black, but they still had like straight hair, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, where's the Afro puffs? Where's the curls?
Yeah,
So,
like my hair doesn't look like that.
right. And like, what I didn't understand either, and this is like no shade to like my mama or any of my aunts. Like, how like for like Easter you had to get your hair straightened. But I was like, well, why do I have to get my natural curls blown out just to get it curled by a curling iron? That never
Mm-hmm.
made sense to me. But
It doesn't. Let
but
me
at
tell
least the
you.
Crown Act was just passed.
Yes, I'm happy about that, because okay, we live in New York, right? Which is not. It's a little bit more diverse, even though like there's certain areas of New York, they're heavy racist.
Like, where I am in Westchester County, they're racist.
Oh, bro. But like I'm saying, like there's certain parts of the United States that is not a problem, but there's other spaces that you go, and even in New York, I feel like I was working in the corporate, and I was like suggested to blow out my hair because it looked more professional. Kind of like the same concept of the Easter thing. Like, oh, you look more put together. Like, what the hell? My curly hair isn't professional. What are you talking about? So yeah, it's important. I feel like, you standing in your truth and being your most authentic self is something that we need in the community. So I love the fact that you're like an author and that you're like pursuing and doing the things that you love. That makes me so happy.
Yeah,
Um,
art,
yeah,
like,
go.
believe it or not, art has like always been like my main form of communication. Because I didn't speak much as a child. Like I said, I was very withdrawn, and people would always be like, "What's wrong with her?" And my parents are like, "Well, there's nothing wrong with her. She doesn't want to be bothered with you. Leave her alone." And I would always go like find some place where nobody was bothering me. And I would draw. Sometimes if I didn't want to speak, I would draw a picture. My parents knew that was how I communicated. And so they always kept me involved in some type of art. Like I always say this, I'm like, art like saved my life, and I don't know where I would be if I didn't have art. It's a part of my identity. My aunt put me in art shows at 7 years old. I went from that to doing theater, and then dance, and then back to theater. So I've just always been involved in some type of art. And people are like, well, how did you do theater and you're shy? I'm like, well, I'm not shy. But when you do theater, you don't show up as yourself. You show up as a character because, sometimes being different, you want to disappear. And when you do theater, you are disappearing. You're disappearing into a character. So art has always been like a very, very big part of my life. So I've always drawn, and I've always been involved in some form of art. So I'm actually about to join like a probably a theater house out here in Westchester
That's
County.
awesome.
I don't have an immune system, so I just had to wait for like COVID to like
Die
die
down.
down a little bit. Yeah, like somebody can stare at me too long and I'll get sick.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that makes me really happy. So like that's like your joyful place when you're creating.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. So what kind
Like
of music? Go ahead.
I just like to create things. I might not be saying anything verbally, but if I'm creating something, I'm saying something.
Yeah. So what kind of music do you usually choreograph? Like,
We used to do like hip hop and modern. It all depended. Like they were invited to like so many different types of events. So we kind of like went with like the event. Like, um, I'll just use like a modern. Say if we were doing it today, like we wouldn't go to like a Martin Luther King celebration and dance to Cardi B. So like it all it all depended. Even though I like her, it all
yeah.
depended on like the event. So like they kind of did a little bit of everything. Like they were on like 106 in Park, and
Oh wow.
they've been on ABC Family. They did the Apollo. They danced at the United Nations because I was honored there. So they really did a lot.
Wait, so what age groups were you choreographing for? Was it like younger
Um,
children?
I started at I took them as young as 3 years old, and I went up to some of my students were only like 2 or 3 years younger than me. I was very young when I started,
Mm.
so I took them up to like age 21. Um, that's why like I see them now and they got kids and stuff, and I'm just like, oh my god. But I took them at 3 years old. I didn't expect to take them so young, but parents would like approach me or bring the kid, and I'm just like, I can't turn them away. So that's how
Aw,
that
that's
happened.
so cute. I love it. Okay, so besides the meditation and the art therapy, what else do you do for self care?
Well, when I wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I wash my face, and then like before I really like get my day started, besides taking my medication, I take like 40 pills a day. um, I write in my gratitude journal, because like I really do have to live in gratitude. I've survived over 300 seizures, and if you're not
Wow.
grateful for that, I
Yeah.
mean, you gotta live. You have to live in gratitude. So I wake up and I write in my gratitude journal. It's very very full. I probably need another one. But because like I feel like anything that you tell the universe you're grateful for, they'll give you more of. So, I always say I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to be able to do the things that I love. So, um, gratitude is a big part of self care. Um, I love to create. I like to hand paint on clothes. I do that. Like any form of art is also self care for me. Creating. I love to read. I've been doing more of audiobooks lately because I've had this like migraine been harassing me for a little while. But so I love to read. Um, what else do I like to do? I like to binge watch TV shows. And I like to like rewatch the same show over and over and over again.
Yeah, there's a sense of comfort in that. Like sometimes when I'm like, because like I feel like this part of the podcast is like part of it is like creating. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I record the episodes and I have to like edit them, and I'm like, am I gonna watch a new show that I don't know? No, I'm just gonna rewatch something that I already know. It
And
makes it
also
easier.
like I also do that though because the first time I watch a show, I can't completely process what happened and what's going on. So um I have to like, and I need subtitles. But like
Yeah.
the first time, because I was trying to explain to some parents. I was like a guest on this panel, and they were like, "Well, can you tell us why our kids always watching the same show over and over again?" And the way I explained it to them, I was like, "Well, with me, the first time I'm watching it for sight, and the second time I'm watching it for sound, and by the third time, our senses are just all working together, and then we can enjoy it. And then if we like it, we're gonna keep watching it and watching it and watching it, and
Yeah.
then." Like the first time we're watching it, since like me, I kind of don't like surprises. And with TV shows, you don't know what's coming on. Those are surprises. So kind of gives you a little bit of anxiety. So once you know what's going to happen, you can relax and you can watch it. So that's how I explained it to them.
That's cool. My son, he loves to watch the same thing over and over again. But then his thing is Ayana. He likes to he'll watch a show, he'll put the audio of another show and record a new video with the visual of the other show. So that's like his little creative piece. That's like what he likes to do.
That's
Um,
cool.
he's really funny too. What was I gonna say? So I love the fact that you actually make time for self care because I feel like a lot of the time we're always like in this go 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 mentality, and regardless if we have us, we're neurotypical or neurodivergent. I feel like self care should be at the forefront of everybody's day. Like, make
Yeah.
time for yourself and take care of yourself. Because like, there's no way that we can pour into somebody else's cup when we're depleted.
Yeah.
So, Ayana, I'm gonna get a little personal.
Okay.
Um, so I know you're dating age. Is there a special person in your life, or do you date?
Not right now. Only because um I'm dealing with like a lot of health issues and like I just don't think it would be fair to like not be able to like give my like, all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a nightmare too because of like my communication issues and like if like say I went out on a date, the eye contact thing, why you not looking at me?
Yeah.
Is everything okay? The food sensitivities, did you not like your food? Why you not eating all your food? The touch aversion, no, you're not kissing me before the date is over. So it's just like it is challenging and you really have to find somebody understanding
Yeah.
if they don't already know that I'm autistic. It's like, okay, do I tell them? Is that going to run them away?
Mm-hmm.
So, it is a bit of a challenge. So, like right now, that is like not something that I'm actively doing.
Okay.
Because of mostly because of my physical health. But when I was, those were the challenges, and when I start again, I know those will still be the challenges, but we'll see what happens.
So, what's your type? Because we don't
Um,
know if we have some single men out there that are listening.
well, I'm like, this is like, I used to do this on purpose, but like, my dad is an activist. he speaks up, he speaks up for like against police brutality and things like that. I actually got my name because of his activism. If you want to hear about it, I'll tell you. But
Yeah, after
um,
you finish the story.
so like when I was like a teenager, I was like, well, I like white boys, and I think I was just like rebelling though because now I don't like white boys. I would probably like someone who is an artist like me, but if not, that's fine. But you have to want to go to an art show with me. I'm going to drag you to an art show with me.
Yes, yes.
But of course, kind, respectful. Um, like I can't be in a relationship with somebody who like doesn't have like basic respect for other humans.
Yes.
So my thing is like you have to know how to treat people. You have to be kind. You have to be respectful, and those are like the basics for me. Like, how do you treat your mother? If you have children, how do you treat your children? So for me, it's more like a characteristic thing because if you're ugly on the inside, I don't care what you look like on the outside. So that's
Yes.
for me. That's my thing. So okay, so back to my name. Um, unless you want to know something
No,
else.
no, it's okay. You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I was actually named by Muhammad Aziz, and he was one of the men framed for killing Malcolm X.
Mm,
And as you know, he was exonerated, I believe, in November. But
yeah,
don't quote me
November of
on
this
that.
year.
Um, and how this came about is my dad was visiting him in prison, and he said to him on one of the visits, he said, your wife is pregnant, and if she has a girl, name her Ayanna. And he had a girl. She had a girl, and she named me Ayanna, which means a beautiful flower. That's how I got my name.
Oh, cute. I love that story. So
Thank you.
is your dad still close to him, or like they visit with each other?
They haven't spoken since he's been out of prison.
Okay. Yeah, like it was that whole thing, like the whole conspiracy behind that. I went into a TikTok rabbit hole and like research rabbit hole, and it was just like my brain exploded.
It's just like people. I mean, like really, they spent decades in jail, and it was just like people. Like sometimes I read about like people's conspiracies, and like my brain starts to hurt.
It's a lot of information, and then like when you just start, because it's like it starts etching away at like that surface. Once you get like deep, 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 like my brain starts hurting. Like literally, I have to like put it down or like walk away for a little bit because I'm just like, it's
Yeah.
too much. And then you start questioning everything, and you're like, well, is anything even real? Um, yeah. So I wanted to ask you if you could give the parents advice, because I know you talk to a lot of moms and you've done a bunch of interviews with different moms. Like, what advice would you give them to help support their children, or what advice could you give them to like help the moms prepare them for like adulthood?
I always tell the parents to not limit their child and to not allow others to limit their child and to definitely not let their child limit themselves because being diagnosed as autistic is not the end of the world. You can still flourish and you can still live a full life. Just like I said before, it's just going to be a little different, and they're just going to be a few more obstacles than others. But I think everybody has challenges in life, so your challenges are just going to be a little bit different.
I want to thank you so much. This was such a good interview. Is there
Thank
anything else
you.
you wanted to share about yourself or anything else?
Um, I think you asked really good questions.
Thank you, Ayana. So with that, comadres, I'm gonna close out the show, and I want to say what I say all the time, which is follow me at Comadreando Pod on IG, and you can follow Ayana on IG at, you can drop your handle.
Phenomenally autistic.
And she has a TikTok, and she has a link tree, which I'm gonna put in the show notes as well. And if you have any questions for me or for Ayana, please feel free to send me a comadregram via email at comadreando@escthenetwork.com or slide up into my DMs. And I want to thank you all for spending the afternoon with your comadres. And with
Yeah,
that,
minute
good
for
night,
Comadre
everybody.
time.
Bye.